F1 podcast, the Mexico City Grand Prix preview of the 2025 race here. We're very excited because this, in my opinion, is the race that will forever remind us of how good Carlos Sainz really is. Because remember what happened last year in front of a sold out crowd of 405,000 people. It was Ferrari's last F1 race win, and it didn't come from Lewis Hamilton. It certainly didn't come from Charles Leclerc. It came from a man who's going to be driving a Williams this weekend and also happens to be a reigning podium sitter in the sprint category. It's Carlos Sainz. He won his last race here. And that's what I'm going to remember this race for, Kunal. But what else do you remember Mexico City for from last year? Because a lot went down here 12 months ago.
Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso, elbows out. But trust me, you're the only one who's literally still celebrating that Carlos Sainz win from last year. Doesn't matter what team he won for, which team he won for. Just the very fact that Carlos won is where you're like, oh my God, Carlos won. Oh my
I
God,
think it's
Carlos won.
even
But
more important because Lewis has
yes,
not gotten a podium in 18 races with Ferrari. I think this one must be race number 19. And as F1 Stats Guru pointed out, that's the longest any Ferrari driver has gone without taking a podium ever.
that's a
So
stat Lewis didn't want. He's gone there for his eighth title and he's yet to get his podium. And okay, quiz time, since we've been doing a lot of quizzes. Do you think Lewis can score a podium in 2025?
let's ask this question to Lewis. Lewis, do you think you can score a podium in 25? Because my sentiment is it's not happening. Like, if things go on the way they are going on, it's not happening. But then again, it wasn't really happening for Ferrari here last year. It just so happened with track evolution and with Carlos feeling the confidence on the medium tires that a driver who hadn't quite broken the world with his performances the year before that ended up winning that race. So you never say never.
Yeah, you never say never. And I think what Lewis is definitely trying to do is focus on the process, get the best race execution, decision making. And if that results into a podium, he'll take it. But yeah, at this moment, I'm a little more hopeful after Kota that Lewis could still score his podium, right? And the reason why I say this is they were actually quick in Kota. Despite it being a bumpy circuit, they unlocked potential. And Leclerc said, we want to dig into the data more. Now, let's hope that the 3 days difference or the 3 days gap between Kota and Mexico is enough for Ferrari and their remote teams to actually find out what has happened. So I'm actually cheering on Lewis Hamilton for a podium in 2025. It doesn't matter what race it comes, so long as it comes.
Exactly. But Ferrari are still not the number one car. As we head into the Mexico City Grand Prix, we now genuinely have to ask a question about which car is the number one car in Formula One right now. And some of you might say that the quality of a car is determined by how good both drivers perform there. But clearly it's Formula One, and clearly it's the quest to find the fastest. So, Kunal, which is the number one car in F1 right now?
Red Bull Racing, without a doubt. With all these upgrades they've brought,
Yeah.
it is Red Bull Racing. They've been able to unlock performance across different circuits, across different temperature ranges, across different weather as well, I would say. And I think it is Red Bull Racing. That upgrade in Monza, then the front wing upgrade that came in Singapore has all given Max Verstappen more comfort in the car. And then, when Max is comfortable with the balance of the car, he's not complaining. He's just putting it on pole. I would say it's Red Bull. The second maybe is McLaren. Is not McLaren. It's Mercedes. Soumil, right? Because Red Bull and Mercedes are bringing upgrades longer into 2025 than McLaren and Ferrari. Leclerc himself said that McLaren and us stopped bringing upgrades several races ago, but Red Bull and Mercedes are bringing them in. And like Toto Wolff said that George Russell could have won in Kota if he was the one in free air up at the front.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Red Bull and Mercedes can because they've also got marginally more wind tunnel time compared to the other two because of where they finished last year. And that maybe is what they are using here, but it's hard to really tell. But it's a valid question to ask about whether Russell could have won. And this race is where I genuinely will back someone like George Russell to win because Mexico City is a total outlier. As F1 Stats Guru pointed out in his amazing stat that's blown up, that's like twice the height of Burj Khalifa on which this circuit sits on. That's how high Mexico City is compared to all the other circuits, which means you get 25% less air. and naturally cooling becomes an issue. So teams find different ways to cool the car. They'll have like very wide open engine units and like cooling units so that they can actually bring some heat into bring some air into the engine and the brake ducts eventually, which is a problem that they struggle with. And also finding enough temperature in the front tires, because that was the problem that Oscar Piastri faced last year. He was eliminated out of Q1 at this very circuit because he couldn't find confidence and temperature in the front tires on the softs, which he shifted to. Whereas his teammate Lando Norris and where the eventual race winner Carlos Sainz was on a medium, and they were able to generate enough temperature and grip on that, which then got them into Q3 and then got Carlos the win. So it's a changeable circuit. Heat is a big issue here. Cooling is a very big issue. Altitude is a big, big word. This all points in one direction, that Mexico City is a proper outlier. And isn't this where, Kunal, they get the Monaco level wings for Monza level downforce?
That's the drinking game for this weekend. Monaco level wings with Monza levels of downforce. Extremely high speeds. In fact, some of the highest speeds have been experienced around the Mexico City Grand Prix. 360, 370 kilometers per hour, depending on what the configuration of the car that is being put on track. But the drinking game will be about several words that will be repeated. Altitude, 2,240 meters is what some teams have
Yeah.
said. Some teams have said 2,280 meters. But the truth is, there isn't a real measurement of this. And of course, I'm joking when I say this, but the Mexico cities is built on reclaimed land and it is sinking 5 centimeters a year. So, the measurement they did 5 years ago is already 25 centimeters lower, which is why all the how high is the Mexico City Grand Prix measurements are differing. But truth be told, yes, it will be about altitude. So, that could well become the drinking game because, like you said, it stresses out the tires, it stresses the brakes as well, and crucially stresses out the power units, Soumil. So, lots of interesting reliability concerns that the teams and drivers will be dealing with this weekend. And I think the big question for you is, do you know the 9 drivers participating in FP1? Let's quiz you.
Yes, number one, a driver who I was very, very lucky to speak to for the Inside Line F1 podcast, thanks to Red Bull India, Arvid Lindblad. Labeled as the next Max, but more importantly, labeled by Christian and Helmut as the next world champion driver for Red Bull Racing. Their words, not mine. He's very good. He's expected to be in Formula One next year, and he's already driving a car, this time in Mexico City. So I'm very excited to see Arvid on the track. Once again, I must say, because he's already had an outing before. So I'm very excited to see how he takes to the Mexico City circuit, which, as we mentioned, is such an outlier and is so different compared to others in terms of all the technical challenges it has, and that's going to be exciting. So Arvid won. Ayumu Iwasa, is he taking part?
No.
No. Rio Hirakawa is taking part for Haas. He's not paying $3.5 million like he was for McLaren, as revealed in the court case. uh and Antonio Fuoco for Ferrari.
Paul Aaron.
Paul
Yeah,
Aaron for
Foco
Alpine.
for Ferrari. Yeah, extremely success. Yeah, Paul Aaron for Alpine. Go for it.
Frederick Vesti for Mercedes.
Yeah.
Pato Award for McLaren because he always is driving in the rookie test. I don't know how
Yes.
after all these years.
But I must say, Iwasa is in there for Racing Bulls. Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
so that's
Luke
seven.
Luke Browning
Eight
for Williams. There is which team? Jack Crawford for Aston Martin.
for Aston. Yes.
Yeah. I think there are 9, not I think, there are 9 teams that are going to have new drivers. The one team that doesn't have FP1 given away to a rookie or sold to a rookie, if that's the word we can now use, Sommel, is Sauber.
Yeah, and importantly in that context, let's remember which drivers will not get FP1. So for McLaren, Lando Norris will have to step out of the car in FP1 because Pato Award gets a chance. In Ferrari, it will be Lewis Hamilton stepping out from FP1 so that Antonio Fuoco can get a go. At Red Bull Racing, Max Verstappen steps out. Arvid Lindblad will be in the car for FP1. At Mercedes, George Russell will not take part in FP1 because Frederick Westy will do so. At Aston Martin, it'll be Lance Stroll stepping away for Jack Crawford, Pierre Gasly away for Paul Aaron at Alpine, and eventually Oliver Behrman for Ryo Hirakawa in Haas, and Liam Lawson stepping out for Ayumu Iwasa at Racing Bulls, along with Carlos Sainz getting out for Luke Browning in Williams. So lots of key drivers in key championship positions not getting FP1 fights. Russell coming to mind, Hamilton coming to mind, Verstappen and Lando Norris. So crucially, Oscar Piastri will have 60 more minutes in the car this weekend compared to Lando Norris, and he needs it because right now he's in a pressure cooker situation. And for the first time ever, we are seeing Oscar Piastri's emotions appear. This is a normal development curve for any racing driver, which for Oscar, fighting for a championship perhaps has come much earlier than some other drivers. But this is where he really needs to hold it together, Kunal. And do you believe he's got that ability to do so, given what you've seen in the last couple of races?
I believe so. I mean, is this? I think he's hit rock bottom, if we call it that. He's had, and we should list out all the issues or incidents we've seen with Oscar Piastri, right? Because there were some which were inflicted by himself. So you take the qualifying crash in Baku and the opening lap crash in Baku. That was all him. Singapore turn one, Lando Norris onto the inside. Him leaving that inside open was also on him, I would say, even though Lando had repercussions for that. Kota sprint race, he said, I take partial responsibility for what happened. I called BS on that. But anyway, there was Kota sprint race opening lap challenge as well. In Kota, the Grand Prix, he just did not have the pace to match Lewis Hamilton or Lando Norris. It's a bogey track. We can sort of write that out. But in Singapore, he did qualify well, Soumil. So he has had a dip and come back. He has had a dip and come back. But we also, if we go to Hungary, he had to give up a race win. Despite being the race leader out there to Lando Norris, thanks to Papaya rules in Silverstone, the FIA suddenly decided to penalize him for unpredictable braking under the safety car, something we've not seen. So he's actually ebbed and flowed a fair bit, and he has stayed strong through it, right? Do I think he's going to bounce back? I definitely think so. But it is also goes back to the question. McLaren no longer have the quickest car. So if he's
Yeah.
unable to go for the win, can he keep banking points? Can he reduce the points gap that Max Verstappen will or could eat into his drivers' championship tally, Somal?
Yeah, you're so right about that. I was thinking heading into this weekend about what Oscar Piastri's mentality will be because now he's backed into a corner. There's two ways you can react to this sort of situation. You can accept that you're in a championship fight and just try whatever you can, go all guns blazing to try to hold on, like Max Verstappen did last year against Lando Norris, going over the limit to keep the McLarens away from his title. Or you can treat it as just another normal race and keep on chipping away at it. And this mindset shift will be very interesting. I was like, will Oscar look for consistent points or will he look to go all guns blazing? And then another thought in my head went, is it upon him? Is it completely down to him? Because is that McLaren capable enough for him to go all guns blazing anymore? And that is a very valid question to ask because it's a big outlier. Like last year, they had a significant advantage over Ferrari in the medium to high speed corners in the middle of the circuit. But Carlos was just able to put the lap together on the medium compound tires, was able to adapt to the changeable conditions much better, while Oscar was out in Q1. So it's one of those races where you have to get it right on the day. And the volatility is just all the way bigger in Mexico City. So this could well be a turning point after a turning point in the World Championship, Kunal.
I believe so. And I think he will still go all guns blazing. He will still be able to put the car to his limits because that's what racing car drivers do. And let's not write him off. He said, I'd rather be in my position and situation than, in the situation of the other two that are chasing me. And Leclerc has
Would he
actually
rather,
said,
though?
yes, Max is great. Max, of course, I think you'd rather be the one who's being hunted with a points gap rather than the one doing all the hunting. Because when you consider all the risks, right, Max needs to take more risk, whereas Oscar still knows that he's got a healthy points gap to Max for that matter. So in the case of Oscar, I think even if he loses points to Max but considers gaining points to Lando, that is still a great place to be, right? Because 40 points over 5 races will take a lot more of luck in the case of Max Verstappen to sort of make up. But Samuel, that reminds me, how many points do you think Verstappen could take from Piastri this weekend?
Ooh, I'm saying at least seven. At least seven.
Be
because it
bold. Come on.
no
So
7.
you're saying Max is winning and Piastri second.
Yes. Oh, I honestly think like now that you're putting it this way, I really don't want to double down on a driver's bad form, but Lando has just looked so much more solid at circuits where you need a front end. I mean, recently, last 3, 4 races, you take of Singapore, you take USA. Circuit of the Americas is also one where you need a little bit of that. And some might say it comes down to the suspension adjustment device that Lando started using and Oscar rejected using at the start of the year. That's a theory that you can consider if you really want to. But whatever it is, Lando seems more confident in the car over the last 2, 3 races. And confidence is something that cannot be undervalued. So I'm saying Oscar loses 10 points to Max this weekend because Max wins, Lando second, Oscar third. That's my bold prediction for this weekend.
My bold prediction is Max wins. It's George Russell in second.
Oh,
Okay. But we're going to have Oscar Piastri in third. So Piastri will make up points on Lando, but he will lose a significant chunk of points to Max. That is my feeling.
what are your predictions, guys? Feel free to write into us at the Inside Line F1 podcast. By the way, subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram because lots of cool short form content will be coming your way, left, right, and center, along with the magazine shows, which we also intend to restart very soon. So stay in tune for that and make sure you comment what your predictions are. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Max will take out 10 more points from Oscar Piastri. But I'm wondering what the dynamic is like currently for Lando Norris, Kunal. Because yes, he's behind Oscar. Yes, he still has to cut 12 points away from Oscar and then create a gap to be able to win the world championship. But I feel this is the best he's performed all season, and this is the most comfortable he's looked with the car all season. Just so happens that he's slower to Max while doing so. But compared to Oscar, I think this is the most confident he's looked all year.
He has, and I think maybe he's just used to uh, having Max ahead, and that's his motivation. That Max has to be the one ahead of me for me to chase him down, and not Oscar. And maybe that's the way Lando Norris is paying respect to the great talent that Max Verstappen has. But he looks more comfortable. But it's also down to Oscar probably just picking up his pace. And maybe the sequence of circuits we've come to are what has got Oscar out. But I still think McLaren are doing the right thing by not favoring one driver over the other, even though we've sort of discussed this. And, we've sort of been like mathematically, you should back Piastri, but the momentum is with Lando Norris. I like the fact that they are willing to let the drivers have a go at themselves within the vague papaya rules, repercussions, and all of that. And that's the strange thing, right? Because in Singapore, Lando Norris almost put Piastri in the wall and had to pay had repercussions in sprint qualifying, where he went out earlier in qualifying. But Lando basically gave up a track position, uh, compared to Oscar Piastri
Yeah.
in the sprint race, where Oscar took partial responsibility for the first corner crash. The repercussions, which were supposed to last till the end of the season, have now been called off, right? So they are saying they've started from a clean slate. So to me, all of this is a mighty puzzle. Saying, when does it stop? And maybe that clean slate is what the drivers need as well, to not keep feeling this pressure that, oh my God, the car next to me is a papaya, and the next thing I know, just a slight nudge, and I miss out on all the qualifying, track position for the rest of the season, or I don't get priority pit stops, or whatever it is. So I'm just eager to see them both go wheel to wheel and sort of make the most of it.
Yeah, and I don't want them to be close to each other. Honestly, I want Oscar and Lando to fight it out in the first couple of laps and settle who the winner is so that either one of them can take on Max or George clean. Because it's very evident at Mexico City, strategic variability is very important. This race can be a one stopper or a two stopper. Like in 2023, Max Verstappen was able to make it a two stopper on the way to victory because he wanted a fresh set of hearts towards the very end. Now, Kevin Magnussen caused a safety car, and then that was able to help him out. But it's a circuit where the safety car can come out quite often because you've got crazy sections where you can crash out. Turn 1, 2 is infamous for battles, and inevitably someone can cut the corner and go off. And then later on, Peraltada. So many drivers crashed there in practice and qualifying during the race too. So there is a real probability. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to be able to keep a fresh set of tires towards the very end. And if that's the case, McLaren will quite clearly go and give priority to whoever's ahead. So they might as well finish their fighting so that they can then duke it out with the others on fair grounds, like McLaren versus Mercedes versus Red Bull. Or maybe we could do what Sadhna's suggesting. What if McLaren has a double DNF or an incident because they finally race? I love Sadhna for this. Like she's always able to sprinkle some chaos dust into our minds.
Yeah. And chaos dust, especially at a circuit which is so historic to give us such fantastic racing, because the circuit, and I know we've just spoken of the altitude, but the circuit by itself is also very interesting with that mighty long straights that they've got, three DRS, a mix of, low to medium speed corners, the infield section. Then when
Hmm.
you go through the baseball stadium as well, reminds me of the new Hockenheim stadium section, Soumil. And the very fact that the Mexicans celebrate this race, throughout the whole race weekend, 400,000 plus in crowd. The tickets have been sold out, and for the first time in recent history that the Mexico Grand Prix has been back, has Checo Perez not been a
Hmm.
driver. He's not going to be participating in this race. But going by the ticket sales, I do not believe that has dented the interest in Formula One for the Mexican fans. They are coming for Max Verstappen versus the McLaren drivers, Somal.
Yeah, the first Mexico City GP without Sergio Perez. The question is, will he be in the paddock this time? I'm sure it's his home race, so he might as well pop down, say hello, wave the Cadillac fly high, and make sure that people are aware and hyped about that team that's going to be there next year. But this is a very important race for Formula One, Kunal. Like last year, 405,000 people attended. That's 4 lakh people if you wanted to know an Indian currency or an Indian ways of translating it. That's incredible. That's honestly, I don't think even Silverstone has numbers this high, do they? Like,
I believe not, but the Americas pretty much have some of the largest stadiums and lots of crowds that they draw. And I believe it's also because the races come just once a year. And what I mean is, if you're in Europe, you can go to several races just a couple of hours away, right? But it's just this time of the year. And uh, one of the interesting stories to track after Mexico, Somal, is the Red Bull drivers. They're going to be announcing the four drivers who will race for the Red Bull teams next year. Who are your four drivers that you would pick for Red Bull Racing and for whatever they're called, Toro Rosso, Visa, Cash
okay,
App, Racing Bulls? Okay, your four drivers for Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls.
Max Verstappen locked in. The terrified Isaac Hadjar because he feels it's terrifying. The prospect of moving to Red Bull Racing, surely. Arvid Lindblad has to find his way there. It is time. Now is time for him to come. Which leaves the question: Liam or Yuki? And I'm going to make the decision that Christian Horner made at the start of the year and was very brutally trolled for it and admonished for it by the media. But the reasoning for my decision and his decision remains the same, which is Liam Lawson has a higher ceiling and a higher potential. Hence, I pick Liam Lawson. Do you pick Liam Lawson as well, Kunal? Or does Arvid not make it? What's your four drivers for Red Bull Racing?
I
Or
I
rather,
would I
let's rephrase this. Who are your four Red Bull Racing drivers? Ah,
I would say Max Verstappen is locked in. Max Verstappen is locked in. Along with him, I would like to see Yuki Tsunoda uh, continue. Going back to Franz Tost, he's always said they came too early when he's spoken of Red Bull Juniors being promoted, right? So I would love to see Max and Yuki continue. I would love to see Liam Lawson get a chance as well,
hmm.
and maybe Isaac Hadjar as well, right? Not maybe, Isaac should continue there as well, and see if there is a mid-season swap between Yuki and Isaac they can try and do next year. And this means Arvid Lindblad, I think he would also still benefit from a second season in Formula 2. Just that Formula 2 is so unpredictable that suddenly you see a talent doing well and you might as well just give him a shot in Formula 1. And that's probably where Red Bull's going to go. So let's see what Dr. Helmut Marko decides.
Should be very interesting. Guys, also one last thing to watch for this weekend. The battle for second in the constructors. Only 10 points separate Mercedes at 341. Ferrari second at 334, 8 behind, and Red Bull Racing are third at 331, 3 points behind them. And behind them as well is more fighting for sixth place with Racing Bulls at 72, Aston Martin at seventh with 69, and Kick Sauber eighth at 59 points. Lots of chopping and changing. It's going to be a very interesting race weekend, a proper outlier. But time to say goodbye for now, guys. It's been our Mexico City GP preview. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast on YouTube and also on Instagram. Kunal and I will be back, maybe not immediately after the race, but certainly sometime afterwards to get you the entire race report. And yeah, make sure you listen to us on the Hindi broadcast on Fan Code. Take care, guys. See you soon.